Hello, my name's Chris Badgett, and in this video I'm going to go over the Myers Briggs personality type test and go over what the letters mean and how to understand it and use it and explain it simply. Essentially what the Myers Briggs personality test tells you at the end is it gives you 4 letters. A good test will also tell you how strong you are in each of those letters. So for example, the first letter is either an I or an E, which stands for introvert and extrovert. And it's not like you're either or, you're more likely just somewhere on that continuum in that spectrum. So think of the letters as not, an all or nothing thing, but you're basically somewhere on a continuum. It is helpful when you're first learning it to actually study extreme cases to get a handle on what it all means, and then you can get on into the nuances of what somebody who is, for example, more 60% towards being an introvert, 40% extroverted, you can get a feel for what that's like. But at first, when you're first learning it, it's good to kind of learn the extremes. And there are people out there who are extreme versions of all the personality types, or definitely it's even much easier to find someone who's really extreme in just one of those letters. So let's talk about the first letter, which is I or E, introvert or extrovert. This is one of the most common ones that people have already kind of heard before in social science or psychology class or just in conversation. But essentially, introversion and extroversion is about where you get your energy. And an introvert will often needs quiet time, alone time, prefer smaller, tight-knit social groups as a place to get their energy. Whereas an extrovert really thrives on the stage, out in big groups, and with a lot going on. So think about the end of a party. An introvert may come home exhausted from a big, lots of people, lots of good times and conversations party. The introvert's going to feel like, whoa, a little shell-shocked, and the extrovert is going to be all charged up and ready to keep going. So that's one way to understand introversion and extroversion. Another is to think about how we process our knowledge. An introvert thinks to talk or does a lot of internal processing before they speak, usually. And you've probably observed somebody who doesn't talk that much, and when they do kind of come out and say something, everybody kind of listens, and it might even make that introvert a little uncomfortable because they feel like the spotlight's on them. But the reason that is because people kind of sense that this person really takes care before speaking, so this must have great importance to this person. Whereas an extrovert often thinks to talk, and they get real chatty. They will, just before they've even thought about it, literally, they're talking to think through an issue, a relationship problem, a problem at work, or whatever it is. They'll just start talking. So the way we process problem solving is another way to kind of identify where you and others may stand on that introversion, extroversion spectrum. The next letter is the N or the S. Now the N stands for intuitive and the S stands for sensing. So what these basically mean is, let's talk about sensing first. It's a little easier to understand. A sensing person who is stronger on that end of the spectrum is going to be really in their body. One of the groups of people, there's 4 main groups of people in the Myers Briggs framework, are the artisans. So let's kind of look at them like a really highly skilled artist, mechanic, computer programmer, coder. These artisans are big S's. So what that means is they're really in their body. Information comes in through their eyes, through their body, and they become really good at craftsmanship. And they really like to work and be in their body. And that can, translate to a really fine motor skills, painting, or even painting in code, if we talk about the digital age. But take that back and look at someone like a intuitive person who's more on the inside of the spectrum. They're still a human being. They get information in through their senses, through their eyes, through their ears, through touch and everything, but they are going to process information. They're going to try to get it out of their senses as quickly as possible, and they start rolling it around in their head. So an intuitive person is often not the best with the details. You may, when you think about someone and you're like, yeah, they're kind of cerebral, or, they're kind of just operating on gut, where's the hard skills or whatever. You may be dealing with a more intuitive person. So think about that. Think about, someone like an artisan, an artist, a really extreme, incredible artist is probably an S. A really, extreme, Henry David Thoreau type person who's receiving the world through his senses, but then processing all this information and coming out with this cerebral type treatise is, probably an intuitive person. So the next letter is F and T, so feeling and thinking. And the best way to understand this is that when a person who is more on the F end of the spectrum, when they get information or an event happens in their life, they're going to immediately process it, predominantly with emotion or feelings. It's going to be dominant in how they react and approach a situation. Whereas a T or thinking person is going to be more logical about how they, process an event. So this is a huge area where once people understand how Myers Briggs can be helpful, you can learn more about yourself and learn more about others in such a way that someone you may thought who is being a little cold or a little overly emotional, in fact, they're not being mean or too emotional or whatever. It's just they're wired differently to process their reality. So that is a complaint for an extreme T. Is if you've ever just kind of done business with someone that's really cold, matter of fact, logical, kind of what's in it for me, logic, especially in relationship economics, if you will, that you're witnessing a really strong T. Whereas if we go over to the feeling side, someone who is, in an extreme case, you may be confused because sometimes it feels like they're ignoring the facts and they're just reacting emotionally to everything, even if it's just a little thing. Everything has this emotional color or hue to it, if you will. Once you understand that and understand that, different people experience reality differently, and maybe look at yourself and see how you react, and maybe if you're in a leadership position or at work, if you feel like you're coming off or you're not being understood, perhaps the people you're around are either feeling like you're being cold if you're kind of a real logical, thought-based person, or if you're super emotional. Some people may be a little overwhelmed at all the energy and emotion that's just kind of radiating off you, no matter what the deal is. So the last letter is the P and the J. So P stands for perceiving, J stands for judging, and I think the simplest way to understand this one is to look at the P as someone who's a prober, and the J as someone who's a scheduler. So what this means is the prober likes to leave all their options open. They don't like making decisions. They feel more comfortable, before a decision is made. Whereas the scheduler, or the J, the judging, likes to narrow their focus, tighten it in, eliminate options, and just really focus on making a decision and getting past that. Now, this is a very common source of conflict in work environments, but it's also a very common source of genius working relationships when people either build a team or work inside of a team that have both influences. So a prober is more likely to bring more options to the table, to think outside the box, to really expand creatively around solutions, whereas someone who's the scheduler, the judging, has a focus on execution, getting things done, making decisions, pushing the agenda forward. You can see this in the family environment sometimes, or in a relationship. It's a source of conflict, or it's a source of great family experiences where one person just can never make up a decision, or a faction of a family is very, decision resistant, but also is always coming up with new ideas and things. And then another part of the family, is ready to get it done, lock and load, let's do this. And these types of relationships, especially in a couple, can butt heads sometimes, but it's also possible to, in a business environment or in a family environment, to really open up and explore options while at the same time get a lot of stuff done at once and really do great work. So I hope you find this overview of the Myers Briggs personality type situation helpful, and I'd encourage you to, if you're new, just look at extreme cases. You'll see that the 14 combinations of these letters create archetypes, like the healer, the counselor, the artisan, the drill sergeant, the inspector. All these types of archetypes are extreme versions. And what I recommend you do is you study these, study them in their extreme, and then use that knowledge to better understand yourself, understand others, and then when you're ready to go deep and use this, start thinking about the nuances of, okay, this person isn't maybe a total intuitive person, but they're definitely on that side of the spectrum. Or this person is an extreme prober, but kind of in the middle on introverted, extroversion, kind of in the middle of feeling or thinking. Once you explore the nuances, it becomes a powerful framework and for really understanding yourselves, people, and others, resolving conflicts, building great organizations. And the most important thing to remember at the end of the day when you're done is that we're all unique, individual human beings, and this map, or this Myers Briggs framework, is not the territory, but it is a really powerful tool for getting to know yourself and others. Thank you.